I see a lot of confusion in my comment section about manifestation, so I wanted to make this primer video about the major differences between law of attraction and law of assumption. Most people find manifestation through the law of attraction. I know I did. And then I stumbled into the law of assumption. I didn't even know that existed before I did more research. The law of attraction and the law of assumption are often used interchangeably, but they are different interpretations of manifestation. So to define all of our terms here, manifestation is an umbrella term for the process of consciously creating or influencing reality through focused thoughts and intention. Law of attraction and law of assumption each provide a framework for people to use to consciously manifest. And they have some similarities, there is some overlap, but they operate on fundamentally different principles that can contradict one another, and that is why I think so many people are confused. And I don't want anyone to feel bad about not understanding. If you look back at some of the manifestation videos I did last year, I made a lot of little mistakes about things that I didn't understand the nuances of things. I was using law of attraction as a synonym for manifestation, and I didn't really understand that it was actually a discipline of manifestation. Like, it was an interpretation of manifestation and not just a synonym for it. I don't even want to watch those videos back, but it's okay that I've made some mistakes because it means that I'm growing. I'm gonna have to like reorganize my playlist on the channel to make it clear that going forward, when I talk about manifestation, I'm mostly talking about law of assumption, but this video is going to be talking about the key distinctions between law of attraction and law of assumption. I would say the biggest difference between the two is how reality is shaped in each of the theories and where the focus is placed in the manifestation process. So first, let's talk about the core differences, which is in the names, attraction versus assumption. But let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Charlotte, and I make videos for people who want to get out of their own damn way. I talk about tools and strategies to approach life differently, including manifestation, but I also talk about dating and some other things. It's all about mindset tips. If that's something you think you can use help with, please consider liking, subscribing, leaving a comment. Let me know you exist. It really helps me out a lot. And I also provide notes for all of my videos. You can find that in the description. It's going to ask you for your email. Just let me know if you want to opt into a newsletter. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the video. Law of attraction is based on the idea that like attracts like. So your energy and vibrations attract things of similar frequency to you. In the law of attraction, everything is energy, and including you. So with the law of attraction, you're aligning with positive energy to attract your desires to you. And it often involves focusing on feeling good and being high vibe to be a vibrational match for what you want. And this is where the radio station metaphor comes in. You've probably heard of that if you watch some of this content, where you are tuning into a specific radio station frequency so you can receive what the station is playing. That's the idea. You are attracting something into your life by changing stations, so to speak. Also, because you're receiving what you want, you're attracting what you want from outside of yourself. It's coming from an outside force. The law of attraction encourages you to look for signs from the universe or from God, whatever you believe in, that things are coming towards you, that you are on the right path. And that is an important thing to note. That's a very big distinction because looking for signs is actively discouraged in the law of assumption. So let's talk about that. Why is it called assumption? What does that mean? The law of assumption is based on the idea that what you assume to be true, your dominant assumption about yourself, about the world, your dominant narrative, will become your reality. With the law of assumption, your imaginal acts, what you feel to be true in your mind, have the power to create your reality if you truly embody and feel and exist in the state of consciousness of the person you would be if you had your desire. Because according to this framework, everything you could ever want already exists. Reality is simply a reflection of human consciousness. It's based on the idea that everyone shares one consciousness, and that reality is simply a reflection of our shared consciousness. And yes, this makes concepts like free will a little dicey, but I will not be going into that because whenever I try to explain that to people in my life, it descends into madness, and I don't want to have to deal with that on the internet with randoms. And I know I just made an assumption about maybe I'm the problem, but everyone always goes to mind control, and it has nothing to do with mind control. But we're not going to talk about that here. That is a little too advanced for this video. So sorry. The law of assumption doesn't rely on external energy shifts. It teaches that your dominant mental state and your dominant belief system dictates your reality. With the law of assumption, you don't need to attract anything. Everything already exists. Within your imagination, it exists. Reality is a reflection of imaginations, and therefore you can just shift into the state of already having your desire by feeling it and by imagining it. And the law of assumption does not encourage looking for signs because assuming already implies it is done. There's no need to check the outside world if it feels real in your imagination. This is a major difference between the two laws, this idea of external validation versus internal certainty. And I think that some people who practice law of attraction might have issues with me calling it external validation, but that's how I think about it. So remember, this is my interpretation of this stuff. I can be wrong and other people can disagree with me, and that's okay. This is a little bit of a side tangent, but I do notice that people in comment sections are really begging folks who teach this stuff online to explain things because they don't understand them. And I feel like that is doing yourself a disservice. I understand having questions, I understand needing help and all that stuff and reading, and I did that too. But ultimately, in the end, I can give you this framework and outline it as best as I understand it, but you have to decide for yourself what your spirituality is. You have to decide for yourself what you believe in. No one can decide for you how you think about this stuff because there are no rules here. No one wrote this down like you have to do it this way. This is just how you navigate through the world and how you think about things. The most important thing for anyone to do is to think for themselves. I can give you some tools. I can help you try to understand things. I can give you language that may help you understand things a little better or jog something in your mind that makes you feel like you understand it more. But ultimately, in the end, you have to decide for yourself what you believe. And you don't have to just say law of attraction or law of assumption. You can combine them. You can have any belief system you want. And I think that is a huge problem for a lot of people because they are asking someone else to tell them what to do. They think that they're doing something to get something, and that is fundamentally incorrect. And you're going to drive yourself crazy if you think that way. You will not find peace if you think that way. Tangent over. I use this term external validation because it really does feel that way to me. Like, God is external validation. Like believing in God or believing in the universe is sort of external validation that is resonating internally in a very, very individualistic way. So it's a little off. Like I can see how someone could argue that's not the same thing as external validation. With the law of attraction, you are trusting an external force such as the universe, such as God, something else that you want to believe in, some higher power that is greater than you, that has your back, that is benevolent and looking out for you and going to send the things your way that are aligned to you. Whereas with the law of assumption, literally states that the individual, the manifestor, is God. The manifestor is the operant power. The manifestor is the creator. That is the fundamental difference here. Many people who follow the law of attraction find reassurances in signs from the universe, and these can be angel numbers or synchronicities or astrology, which they interpret as a confirmation that their manifestation is unfolding in alignment with their desires. Like they're on the right path. This is correct. This is the way they're supposed to go. It's coming. The law of assumption does not encourage looking outside of yourself for proof. It actively discourages that. If you're looking for signs outside of yourself, because there are some signs you can look for internally, but that's different. If you're looking for a sign outside of yourself, that suggests that you have doubt that your manifestation is already here. Because if you truly assume something is yours, you wouldn't need proof. You wouldn't need some other entity around you to tell you it's yours. You already feel it. So instead of waiting for signs, with the law of assumption, you have to persist in your assumption and trust it to materialize in your reality. And another side note, if you believe in astrology, you should probably stick with the law of attraction. I think the law of attraction and tarot and astrology all complement each other very well. It's this idea that there is something greater than you out there that is guiding you in the right direction in life. It is almost like a spirit guide, an angel guide, something like that. Like if you don't want to give up astrology, like law of assumption is going to be, I don't want to say like you can't do it. I feel like astrology creates assumptions for you that will interfere with your manifestation because you're saying that a force outside of yourself is controlling your life. And that goes against the tenets of law of assumption. Law of assumption says that you're in control because you're the operant power. I'm trying to be very neutral in how I explain law of attraction and law of assumption. Like I want you to make up your mind for yourself. I am personally all in on law of assumption. I tried law of attraction. It was okay. Like I saw some results, but I wasn't like, it didn't resonate with me so much. And I have always been sort of on the fence about astrology. I like this idea of like, if you know, inside jokes, sort of like, oh, he's such a Libra, that kind of thing. I like the personality aspects to astrology. I was never all in on like, it can predict your future. I don't really believe in that. But you will hear me say like, oh my God, I'm such a Libra. Because like, I think that's kind of funny. I don't think that your planetary placements at birth really affect your future or your outcomes in life. Though I can understand why people do believe it. I don't ever want to make anyone feel like they're silly for having a belief. Like, your belief system, as long as it's not impacting me, do what you want to do. But I just want to make that little asterisk because I want people to recognize like law of assumption works because of your dominant narrative. And if you believe like, oh, well, Saturn is in this house at this time, and that means this is going to happen to me, that's an assumption. You have just created an assumption. You have just manifested because of what your astrology believes or what your sign says or something like that, right? Now, the signs outside of yourself, let me come back to that. So the internal signs that I mentioned is specifically how you are reacting to things in your reality. So if you really wanted this very specific job and you were rejected, how do you react to that? The best sign that you're manifesting correctly and well is that you are indifferent to a perceived setback because you know it's not really a setback. Your response is the real indicator of the state you're in. If you remain indifferent and you know that it's not an actual setback, but just like one step on your bridge of incidents to your assumption that will allow it to harden into reality, then you are truly embodying the state of already having it. The best sign is no longer needing a sign. It's just the unwavering knowing that it's yours. And honestly, one of the funny things about the law of assumption is you're living in such a solid state of the wish fulfilled that by the time your manifestation actually shows up, you're just like, oh yeah, of course, yeah, duh. And then everyone around you is freaking out like, oh my God, are you so excited? And you're just like chill. In your mind, you've already had it for a while. So you're just kind of like, oh right, I should be happier about this. Celebrate, yay. So now let's talk about desire because that's another place the two laws take different approaches. With the law of attraction, it often focuses on wanting and attracting something into your life. So what you want is outside of yourself. And it emphasizes aligning to that thing you want, the frequency of what it is that you want, so you can become a vibrational match. So the desire is outside of you. And the belief is that by maintaining a positive outcome, like a positive emotion, like high vibe and all that stuff, and then strongly believing it's on your way to you, the manifestor will draw their desire toward them. And they'll use techniques like vision boards or affirmations, gratitude practices, scripting, EFT tapping. It's about doing what you can to stay in a high vibrational state. You're controlling your vibrational state, your frequency, your mood, like what you're emanating. That's sort of the idea behind the techniques. The law of assumption thinks about desire a little differently. It shifts from focusing on wanting to being, assuming you already have what you desire. Your desire is not outside of you. And the way I think about the law of assumption is as identity selection. This is about your self-concept, which essentially means what you think about yourself, what you think is possible for yourself, how you react to your thoughts and feelings, and how you react to people and situations around you. So instead of focusing on attracting what you desire, with the law of assumption, you are embodying the identity of the person and the feelings of the person who already has what you desire. There's nothing outside of you. Everything you want is inside of you, in your mind. It is an imaginal act. Is it a feeling? It is a state of being. It is a state of consciousness. So techniques include affirming and visualizing and gratitude practices, and a lot of the stuff I mentioned previously, that is interchangeable. But there's also something called revision, which is when you recall an experience in your memory that didn't go the way you wanted it to, and you remember it differently. You're imagining a different outcome. You're revising the past. You are feeling it as if it happened the way you wanted it to happen. And then there's also a technique called SATS, or state akin to sleep. And that's when you picture a short scene when you're in a sleepy state right before you go to sleep or right when you wake up. And the scene is supposed to imply your wish has been fulfilled. And it's a few seconds. It's not long. So an example would be imagining you are celebrating getting a new job and you're giddy and you're super happy. Like, What would that look like? How would you feel? I like to use my mom in my visualizations because I'm so familiar with her voice and what she looks like, and I use my childhood home. So I visualize her holding out her arms and like hugging me and saying like, "Oh my God, you did it. Congratulations." Like exactly how I know she would say it. And because it's someone I love, there's that emotional connection there as well, which evokes a stronger feeling in me. I have to use strong sounds and like touch in my visualization because I don't have very strong imagery in my imagination. Like the sound is more potent to me. So I find having her voice is really helpful with that. So that's just one example of what sats can look like. You can find more YouTube videos online about that, and Neville Goddard talks about that a lot. That's one thing he recommended all of the time. I haven't mentioned the subconscious mind, but you're essentially reprogramming it through repetition and persistence. And sats is helping you do that when you're in a sleepy state, because you are allowing your conscious mind to sort of talk to your subconscious mind in a more acceptable and easier way. So within the law of assumption, the subconscious mind accepts whatever is impressed upon it consistently. So by persisting in your assumption, you naturally shift your dominant beliefs until they feel like second nature. There is less resistance there from the subconscious mind. The law of attraction has a slightly different way of thinking about the subconscious. In that framework, the subconscious mind is often seen as deeply conditioned by past experiences and also limiting beliefs. So the reprogramming process requires a little more intention, and you come up with paradigm shifts. Bob Proctor talks about this a lot. And I don't know which one I believe in totally. I think that as you move through this process and you learn more about yourself, because everyone's brain is different, you are going to see what works for you. I think that some people's subconscious minds have a lot more stuff to unpack than others. So that's something to consider. They both require you to unpack stuff in your subconscious, both law of attraction and law of assumption. If you have a limiting belief that you are not allowing to surface, it is going to get in the way of your process here. And so there's different ways you can go about it, but ultimately, in the end, you are trying to reprogram your subconscious mind. So the two schools of thought also think about doubt differently. The law of attraction teaches that negative thoughts and doubt can block manifestation. And this can sometimes lead to frustration when people feel like they aren't high vibe enough to attract their desires, or like they can't control their feelings, or they have doubt. And that is one of the major reasons I didn't like the law of attraction. And I've seen some law of attraction teachers address this by encouraging self-compassion and some emotional regulation techniques and letting go instead of forcing positivity, which is good. I think that's good practice. But sometimes I feel like there is toxic positivity with law of attraction, because it's like, nope, gotta be high vibe, gotta be high vibe. It really depends on who you're getting your information from. I honestly think with the law of attraction, you can manifest through doubt. Though I don't really practice it that much. I think it depends on the type of doubt you have. The law of assumption is very much about being non-reactive. It's not about ignoring emotions. So it's more about refusing to give certain emotions power. So doubt and fear, like you don't need to assign meaning to them. You can just be like, oh, look at that. They're there. Because again, in the law of assumption, you are the operant power. You get to decide what you attach meaning to. And the law of assumption teaches that instead of resisting the negative thoughts, you should persist in your assumption until it feels obvious to you, until it no longer feels like something you're trying to believe. It's simply what is, it's what's happening. And it is possible, that sounds crazy to you, it's just because you're out of practice and you haven't tried it yet. Like, it took me several months to sort of understand what this was all about and how I actually should be feeling when I'm in the wish fulfilled. And I'm like, oh, dang, this is magical. This is amazing. You don't need to be in a perfect vibrational state with the law of assumption, because reality shifts according to what you assume to be true. It is your dominant narrative over time. And some doubt here and there is not going to do much. You can absolutely manifest with doubt when it comes to the law of assumption, but the doubt cannot be the dominant state. You have to be open to something being possible. That's enough. Another difference between the law of assumption and the law of attraction is the role of effort. But this gets a little tricky because you will never get people to agree on whether manifestation, regardless if it's the law of attraction or the law of assumption, requires taking action or efforting in any way. We will never all agree. You have to decide for yourself what you believe. But generally speaking, fuzzy outlines of the two laws. With the law of attraction, that encourages taking inspired action based on intuitive nudges. So the idea is that the universe or God or whatever higher power you believe in will orchestrate events, but you must be open to receiving and following signs and taking aligned actions. With the law of assumption, the action flows naturally from the assumption. You don't need to force action or wait for guidance. Also, because we have one consciousness as humans, others might be inspired to work to create a bridge of incidents that will help your desire unfold into reality. But again, I'm getting into the one consciousness, free will thing. That's it. That's all you get. If you assume you already are the person who has what you want, your actions will naturally align with that state. There's no need to check if it's working. You persist in your assumption, knowing it must unfold. A lot of people approach manifesting like they need to do something to force cause and effect. So they constantly are searching for the right technique, like scripting or SATs or 369 or whatever the trend is online, to get the result they're looking for. And it makes sense that we think this way. That's how we're taught. Like, work hard, take action, and things will happen. And yeah, in the 3D world, hard work can lead to success. I'm not denying that. But what we fail to recognize is that if you're thinking about this from a law of assumption framework, which I am, frequently our belief in cause and effect creates an assumption in and of itself. So I'm working hard, therefore I will be successful is an assumption. That statement has inevitability of your outcome built into it. The assumption is what creates the reality. The action just follows. Now, that understanding of cause and effect, that you work hard to get something, that's linear and external, meaning like it assumes that external action creates external results. But when it comes to the law of assumption, the only thing you're working on is yourself. It's mental hygiene. It's mental discipline. So the cause and effect here is your dominant assumption create your experiences. Your dominant assumption is the cause. Your mind is the cause. If you assume I always win, life will reflect that back to you. If you assume money is hard to make, your reality will prove you right, because that is your dominant assumption. If you assume love never works out for me, relationships are going to be difficult. Your relationships will mirror that belief. And once you get your mind right, once you change how you see yourself in the world, once you genuinely believe this is possible for me, or even if it's just this might be possible for me. Like I said, you can manifest through doubt, because that's enough a lot of the times. Just like a possibility that it might work, a maybe is okay. That is when the shift begins. Now, if what I just said sounds crazy to you, I understand. Like, this is not how you were taught growing up. Also, you don't have to use this stuff, right? Like, if you just don't get it, like, it's okay. You don't have to subscribe to this. If it doesn't resonate with you, you don't have to be a conscious manifestor. You can just live your life. Billions of people don't follow this stuff. Like, this is just, it's new age spirituality. You don't have to follow it. Just like there are many people who do not follow any specific religion because they don't believe in it. And that's okay. I think a lot of people see manifestation as this sort of cheat code to getting everything they want out of life, but they're trying to force themselves to believe something they don't. They simply don't believe it. And it took me a long time, I wouldn't say a long time. It took me a decent amount of time. It took me like maybe a year to truly work through what I believe in. And I see a lot of people in the comment sections not doing that. They don't want to work through it themselves. They want someone to tell them something. They think that there's going to be a light bulb moment or something. And like if they watch enough videos and ask the right question, it's just going to click for them. And while I would say there are some moments where it does click, you're not going to get there by just asking people to explain this stuff to you. You have to really work through what you believe. I have this little journal here that I've been using. This is my manifestation journal. And in it, I will write down my thoughts on this stuff, because journaling is how you link your left and right hemispheres of your brain. It is how you process your emotions and your thoughts at the same time. I would write stuff down. I would write down things. I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Hold on. And I'm really interrogating how I think about this stuff. And this is how I came to my own conclusions. I also I was reading things instead of just watching YouTube videos. Read Neville Goddard's lectures, read Abraham Hicks, read a lot of the stuff out there that can give you a better understanding, because I think we process information differently when we read instead of when we're just listening to stuff. I was thinking about making a video about what I did in here, and there's no rhyme or reason. People want videos that are like laid out, like step-by-step formulas. I don't have that for you here. I was just writing. It was just journaling. And so I think that A lot of people are trying to look outside of themselves for the answers here. They're trying to get someone else to tell them how to do this and like it'll click perfectly for them. That is not what's going to happen. Sometimes I see people asking questions in the comments that indicate to me that they have no clue what manifestation is about. They think they know, but they're asking a question that really reveals that they don't get it. And I always feel so bad. It's like I can't sit here and answer every comment. Like I don't have the time for that or the energy really. So not everyone's going to get it. It is what it is. Finally, I want to talk about why I prefer the law of assumption. I know I mentioned it a few times throughout the video, but let me just make a little chapter for it. I think about the law of assumption as mindset work. Like I said, it's identity selection. Do I want to be a person who has the thing that I want? Or do I want to be a person who does not have the thing? If I can choose to believe that something is going to be effortless or something is going to be difficult, why would I choose to believe it's going to be difficult? Why would I do that to myself? I have 100% control over what I choose to believe. I don't have control over each individual thought or each feeling that I experience. Those are automatic and sometimes even intrusive, but I can control how I react to them and I can control my dominant belief system, the thing that I believe in over time that saturates my mind. And I choose to believe in narratives that serve me and my best interest rather than ones that discourage me. And because I take that approach to life, I am able to redirect unpleasant thoughts and feelings in the right direction. And it is a much more peaceful existence. I used to be a prisoner of my mind. Oh my God. I cannot tell you how much of a victim complex I had, how helpless I was, how hopeless I was all of the time. I got this tattoo on my friend's couch when I was 20 years old. She had a random guy who she was friends with who was training to be a tattoo artist, and he ripped me off, but it's okay. It was a learning lesson. He was not skilled enough to do such fine work when I told him what I wanted. He thought he could do it. It all blended together now. You can't even read it. It's supposed to say, choose life. I wanted to exit the planet. Oh boy, did I try. Because I refused to believe that things could get better for me. And now I don't feel that way. This way of thinking gives me agency over my brain. That's empowering to me personally. I'm by no means telling you to forego any sort of mental health treatment. I got a bunch of it. I'm like, there's a lot more to my story than what I'm explaining here. But the law of assumption made me realize how much I hated myself and how unnecessary it was. I was choosing this in a lot of ways. I was choosing these dominant narratives to stay helpless and victim-y. And I see people asking all of the wrong questions in my comment sections, such as like hunting for success stories of what people have manifested because they still think it's about doing something to get something. And it's just not. It's not. This is an entire identity shift. I feel like I cleared out the mud from my brain and I feel good almost all of the time now, like effortlessly. I have people telling me I am glowing because my happiness is internal. I don't need anything to materialize in my world because I can give it to myself. And things are materializing for me in very big ways. I'm getting what I want. But that doesn't even matter. I also like with the law of assumption that you don't need to be high vibe all the time, like with law of attraction sometimes teaches, because that's not realistic. I just said I feel good most of the time, and that's true, but I do still have feelings. I do still have moments that are unpleasant. I do still experience doubt. I do still have humanity in me. With the law of assumption, I feel my feelings, and then I channel them in a direction I want to go in. Feeling unpleasant feelings will not ruin my manifestation. It's not going to send bad juju or whatever. I'm just being a human being. I think that's great. There's room for my humanity in my manifestation. As long as I have the mental discipline to redirect my thoughts to a place that serves me. Even if those thoughts do not immediately resonate with me, you can slowly ascend a staircase to get to the dominant narrative that you want to embody. It has just changed the way I think about everything. It has made me realize I have control over my mind. I am not a prisoner to it. I am not a victim to it. I thought that I was never going to be happy, or I would just live in this permanent state of tolerable unhappiness. It's like, okay, this is just how it's going to be, and that's life. No, I truly cannot tell you how freeing I feel because of this framework. And that's why I make these videos, even though I do sometimes get a little worried about people in my life misunderstanding me, because I'm actually a very rational person. I'm not like a hippy dippy type. I'm not like a woo-woo type. And so when people say like, oh, you believe in this stuff? Like they're surprised that I am so into such a spiritual, not rooted in science, so to speak, even though I do know that people try to root manifestation in science. I don't like that for other reasons, but I talk about this stuff simply because it has opened up the door for me to feel powerful, for me to feel like I can take control of my thoughts, because I was such a slave to my own brain for so long, for the majority of my life. And I don't want to do that anymore. And I'm not. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I have put a custom playlist together of other manifestation videos that I think you might like. Please consider subscribing and commenting. Let me know you exist, what you think, what your questions are, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.